handful of years ago, my daughter and I went on a mission trip to Haiti, and I think that the level of poverty was very overwhelming. Coming back to the United States, it was a huge cultural shock. As we came back, the question I asked is, how do I live here in this land of abundance and extend my hand there when it's not just people that I didn't know that were very hungry and had so little, but it was names and faces. I just kept asking the question. And it's one of those times when you aren't really sure what your answer is, or even maybe aren't ready for your answer. I was reading in Luke chapter 12, and it's those scriptures that talk about don't worry about what you wear, don't worry about what you eat. Sandwiched in with all those neat thoughts, he says, sell your possessions and give to the poor. And those words jumped off the page to me. I came to the point where I said, okay, I don't know what this looks like. I don't know how to live this out. I'll go wherever you want me to go with this, Lord, but you're gonna have to show me, and you have to be gentle because I'm a weenie. The more I kept reading and the more I kept praying, I started to see God has a heart for the poor. Also, the idea of selling and giving and the idea of a thrift store started to be birthed. My career, I've been a stay-at-home mom. I've raised 6 kids on a pastor's salary, and so doing thrifty things always very natural for me. But the whole idea of doing a business was very overwhelming. And I said, Lord, I don't know how to do this. And I felt like the Lord answered with another scripture that said, I am the Lord your God. I am he who created you and formed you, and I will help you. But he had it all planned because at the same time, there were 2 other people that were walking in step with me. One was Tammy Hicks and one was Mike Schultz.
I'm Mike Schultz, and I'm one of the co-founders here at Overflow Thrift Store. I'm also director of Life to Life Africa, one of the ministries that the store supports. About every other year, we were filling a container and sending over to Zimbabwe specifically. On one of the last one that we did, we got some donations from a thrift store down in Pella. They actually gave me a tour of the thrift store there, and in a sense really kind of challenged me to consider, hey, you should look into, starting a thrift store in Ames. That kind of planted the seed, and then, with all the effort that we're doing with these containers, I recognized that it's, maybe more cost-effective to actually sell donated items here and then just send the funds over. So I started kind of floating the idea around. We had a young lady that was helping us with childcare with our 2 daughters, and so I was sharing with her about this brainstorm of starting a thrift store in Ames, and she must have shared that with her mom. Her mom is friends with Kathy Twito. So I just kind of got this email out of the blue from Kathy Twito saying, I understand that you're interested in starting a thrift store. And in the meantime, I then got connected to Tammy through a mutual friend and learned that she was actually doing a store out there in Nevada.
I'm Tammy Hicks. I'm the president of the board and one of the co-founders here at Overflow Thrift Store. My husband and I do property management, and we have several rentals. Probably 7 to 10 years ago, what we were realizing was that tenants leave a lot of stuff behind. It was saddening to me to see how much stuff we would put on the curb or put in a dumpster. We just kept thinking about how can we use this stuff to benefit somebody else. About that same time, we had a building in Nevada. One of the spaces was vacant. So we said, well, why don't we just bring some of this stuff and then just have a sale, like a garage sale once a month. We can use all that money to sponsor kids in Africa. So about the same time, my company was starting Orphans of Teso, which is an organization that works through Children's Hope Chest to get kids sponsored in different villages in Uganda. We built it up. We started with 2 kids. We ended with about 10. And in that time, I just kept thinking about how can we make it bigger? How can we make it better? How can we make it something that's not just something Chris and I are doing, but that we can really bring other people in? I kept looking at different spaces in Ames to see if there was a way we could move it. And about that same time, a friend of mine had called and said, hey, I'm going to send somebody over to talk to you. His name is Mike.
She had a real keen interest in having that store in Ames.
From that, Mike and I then met Kathy.
By divine appointment, the 3 of us met.
Kind of put our heads together and said, okay, here's where I'm coming from, and this is how Overflow started.
All 3 of us had the same passion with the same ideas, but we had different parts of the world that we were burdened for.
God just brought the 3 of us together.
It was a miracle. Even from the very beginning, things fell together in amazing ways. There was a thrift store in Michigan I was in touch with. I was asking ideas from, and they had decided to close their doors. Their board in Michigan had voted to send us all their fixtures of their store. Initially, I was like, oh, great, that's great, but that's in Michigan. And then somebody on their board knew a man who had a ministry in delivering things. This 19-foot horse trailer showed up at our door, and they opened the back doors and they said, thrift store in a box, and in walked cash registers and clothing racks and shelving. It was our start. And so we had stories like that of things that happened over and over.
In doing these containers, I knew that donations would come. Probably the big thing was going to be volunteers to get involved. To see something like this take place, I knew that it was going to have to be a community-wide effort. We're always in need of volunteers.
One of the things that is absolutely delightful about this store is that the many volunteers that come and have joined the passion for giving to some of the world's most vulnerable.
It's really just been amazing to see how much more God is doing through the store than just helping the orphans in Uganda. That was my little vision, and God had such a bigger vision for how He could help people, not just overseas, but also here.
The thing that excites me is just seeing people come together around a cause and wanting to do good and bless people locally and around the world.
So many people that have come alongside and have invested and donated their time and their talent. There is amazing talent that has been given to the store.
For me, it's really been about using the excess that we have in order to bless those that are in need.
The impact that the store is having here and through the different organizations that the store is supporting and the work that they're doing, that's been really exciting to see.
Initially, we were going to donate to Haiti, to Zimbabwe, and to some orphans in Uganda. And we started out supporting 2 college students at the mission site in Haiti that we visit. Now we're supporting 10.
My heart specifically goes out to those orphans that have lost a parent, have lost their family. So that's one of our core ministries.
I think we had maybe 5 orphans to start. Now we have 15. And the stories are just amazing. It's not just even those. Now we are also donating a large amount to Wings of Refuge, a safe house for young ladies coming out of sex trafficking in Iowa, adoption ministries. Every time we start into a new expansion program, I've always been like, oh my goodness, it's too big, it's too much. And God has totally taken it so far beyond what I've ever thought. And here we are, 5 years later, and it has totally blown us out of the water.
So it's been really fun to be a part of what God is doing, and I kind of feel like I'm along for the ride because we never imagined we'd be where we're at now.
The outcome of it is just, amazing. I would have dreamed as to what God's done, and looking forward to dream and think about what could happen going forward.
And people are being impacted, hugely impacted.
But even as we've grown, one of my favorite stories to tell is about this family that has 6 kids, and she was on the hunt for a bike for one of her girls. Obviously, they're on a tight budget, so they didn't want to spend a ton on a bike. They came in, and that morning we had gotten a bike that was the perfect size for her daughter. It was just fun to hear that story because that's exactly what we want to do.
There's a little gal in Uganda. Her name is Nora. Before she was born, the men were all killed, and the women were left with AIDS in their wake. And then Nora was born into this village. And this village not only had drought, but then it had flooding. And so the food was very, very scarce. Nora was enrolled in Children's Hope Chest. And we support Nora, and left to herself, Nora would have no hope. She would never get more than a 2nd grade education, maybe. Probably as a young teenager, she would probably get pregnant. The cycle of poverty would be recontinued. But she wrote us a letter, and she said, when I get older, I want to be a doctor. And you know what? Nora has hope, and she has a future, and we get to be part of changing her story.